In 2024, if you're sitting down to watch the Lord of the Rings films, there's a good chance that you're choosing the extended edition over the theatrical edition. Sure, it's a bit longer, but that's not really a problem. And there's some incredible scenes that were cut that absolutely should have made it to the theatrical edition. That said, there's a few scenes that irritate fans of the books, and one of the most infamous scenes is the face-off between Gandalf and the Witch King, a scene that did exist in the book, but was handled quite differently in the film. So in this video, we answer the question that both versions posed. Would the Witch King have defeated Gandalf? Because that's what happens in the film. In the film, Gandalf receives word that Denethor has gone insane and that he needs to save Faramir. Mounted atop Shadowfax, he swoops up Pippin, but moments later, he is stopped in his tracks by the arrival of the Witch King on one of the city's upper tiers. In a brief confrontation, the Witch King lights his sword aflame and then uses more sorcery to shatter Gandalf's staff, throwing him from Shadowfax. Gandalf is seemingly helpless as the Witch King tells him to die, and presumably would have attacked seconds later. However, the sudden arrival of the Rohirrim causes the Witch King to fly off. In the books, there is also a confrontation, but the circumstances are different. The Witch King, using spells, and the giant battering ram Grond, breaks the gates of Minas Tirith. He rides in alone, and all of the defenders flee, all except for Gandalf, atop Shadowfax, who remains unmoving. The dialogue is very similar to that of the films, and the Witch King does also set his sword aflame, but there is no fight, if you would call it that. Before anyone can do anything, the horn of the Rohirrim sounds and the Witch King rides off. So unlike the films, we're left wondering what might have happened. And so the question is, could the Witch King have defeated Gandalf in the books, like he appears to have done in the films? To be honest, this is a topic that few hardcore Tolkien fans like to wade into. The whole question of who is stronger than whom, who would win in a fight, or what is someone's power level. This is because power and fighting ability in Tolkien's universe aren't the same thing. For example, Morgoth was more powerful than all of the Valar at one point, but he was still afraid of getting into a wrestling match with Tolkas. Sauron was also quite powerful, but even when wielding the One Ring, he was taken down by Elendil and Gil-galad. Sure, both of them are worthy foes, but they're far from the most powerful individuals to have walked Middle-earth. What I'm trying to say is, it's hard to just say, yeah, Gandalf is a Maya, a literal angelic being, the Witch King is just a mortal sorcerer, therefore Gandalf easily wins. Because, yeah, Sauron was also a literal angelic being, and he got beaten up by a giant dog. You also have to remember that Gandalf seemingly has self-imposed restrictions on his power. He can use them, but only if truly necessary, such as when he faces off with the Balrog. So, could Gandalf just immediately incinerate the Witch King? Maybe, but we don't know that for certain, and the disparity in power level doesn't prove that. That said, I would be lying if I said that there aren't ways to compare the characters and then measure up how they might have gone in a fight against each other, because if you're familiar with the books, you would know that Gandalf and the Witch King have faced off before. Yes, on the night of the 3rd of October, Gandalf is attacked on Weathertop by all 9 of the Nazgul. The battle was a draw. Gandalf is able to hold off the Nazgul with lightning and fire until the dawn, and then he flees north on Shadowfax. Even though the Nazgul would have loved to have dealt with Gandalf permanently, by forcing him to flee, he can no longer aid Frodo and his companions. However, the battle leaves the Witch King shaken, and it affects him still a few days later when he attacks Frodo on Weathertop. Logically, this should mean that Gandalf wipes the floor with the Witch King, given he was able to hold off all 9 of the Nazgul at once. But once again, the circumstances are different. The Nazgul were on a stealth mission, and were clearly not expecting to find and fight Gandalf. Also important is that the Nazgul were far from Mordor and Sauron, who could seemingly empower them. That said, Gandalf was also probably physically exhausted at the time, and remember, he is Gandalf the Grey at this point, not Gandalf the White. So, like the Witch King, he too would have been stronger in their Minas Tirith face-off. Okay, but you probably still want to know who wins, right? Well, while I can't say for certain, evidence suggests that Gandalf should win. He is inherently more powerful, he's already faced the Nazgul multiple times, and has either held them off or driven them off like he does at Minas Tirith earlier, and he defeated a Balrog. Also, Gandalf clearly isn't afraid of the Witch King, which is a big deal, because while the Nazgul are always dangerous, you nullify a significant amount of their threat if you're not afraid of them. Considering Gandalf can counter the aura of fear, and likely counter the Witch King's magic, it would come down to a good old-fashioned sword fight, you'd think. Oh, and while Gandalf wouldn't be afraid of the Witch King, it certainly wouldn't be true for the other way around. Which brings me to the second part of the video. Some might rue the fact that the Rohirrim arrived when they did, because it robbed the readers of an epic showdown between two of the most powerful figures in the story, but I would argue that the showdown probably wouldn't have happened anyway, because the Witch King probably would have backed down. While I'm not saying that the Witch King was a coward, it's absolutely true that self-preservation was extremely important to him, and that a 1 versus 1 fight against Gandalf isn't necessarily a fight that he would have liked to have taken. If we go through the Witch King's history, we see that he isn't one to put himself in unnecessary danger. He doesn't fight fair. He attacks Gandalf with the help of all of his fellow Nazgul, he attacks Frodo at Weathertop, but retreats, a catastrophic mistake, when Frodo mentions the name of Elbereth and attacks him with a barrow blade, and when Aragorn attacks shortly afterwards. He challenges King Eomer to single combat, but presumably just ambushes traps and kills the king and his companions. He attacks King Theoden after Snowmane has already been hit by an arrow and Theoden is crushed beneath him. Even when he attacks Eowyn, the Witch King hesitates. We also know that he's afraid of certain individuals. He and his fellow Nazgul are afraid of Glorfindel, who admittedly is very powerful, but at the same time, we're also told that the Witch King was afraid of Steward Boromir of Gondor, a great warrior, but also a mortal man. And even though the Witch King was Sauron's chief commander, he doesn't seem to actually lead from the front very often. As the King of Angmar, he doesn't seem to have made an actual appearance until the fall of Fornost, and at the Battle of Fornost afterwards, he flees the moment the battle is turning against him. Basically, what I'm saying is that the Witch King's past behaviour indicates that he isn't one to recklessly throw himself into a fight against Gandalf, but I must also say that one of the Witch King's chief weaknesses was his pride, and empowered by Sauron and being the first enemy to ever pass through the gates of Minas Tirith, it's possible that in that moment, the Witch King felt absolutely unstoppable. It's possible that in that moment, he didn't fear Gandalf, and that after lighting his sword aflame, he was planning on attacking the wizard and robbing the city of its most important defender. We just don't know. Just as we don't know who would have won if that battle did happen. As I said before, the evidence suggests that Gandalf should win against the Witch King. He's inherently more powerful, he has a more impressive resume, and he's not afraid of him. That said, none of that might have mattered in that moment. Maybe the Witch King could have taken down Gandalf. He's in a mortal body, and mortal bodies die just like any others. Just ask Saruman, who had his throat cut by perhaps the most pathetic being in Middle-earth at that given moment. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it or at least found it interesting. As I said near the start of the videos, this isn't necessarily a topic I would wade into, that of hypothetical battles between characters or power levels. I felt more comfortable doing it with these characters because there's more information about their capabilities, strengths, weaknesses, etc., and because they did face each other once before in the story. Anyway, that's all. Cheers, farewell, and remember, if there was a fighting tournament for Lord of the Rings characters, Bill the Pony would come out on top.